Yeah, hello everybody. There are a couple of familiar faces actually. I have the feeling I know everybody now. So a couple of Audiotool community guys and friends, old friends, and sometimes same thing. Guys that are on Audiotool at the same time are friends for ages now. That's really nice. So I'm going to talk about Audiotool, of course, and it's a very personal and technical perspective I'm going to take, because I want you, even if you don't understand everything, I just want to be as open as much as I can. So I want to explain everything we have in mind for the future. So, well, that's my name. So my name is Andrew Michel, and I used to be a DJ in the early 90s before I started programming. So I actually started very late programming with 28. Before I was just a mess. Didn't do much for a living. So, and that was the reason why I had no money for hardware, like real nice devices. They were so famous at the time, and there still are the Roland TR, TB, and MC series. And way back then, they were like 2,000 euros. It's basically the same today, so they still cost a lot of money, and couldn't afford that. And that was for me, from the time, the feeling I need money to make music. And I had the feeling that's wrong. Yeah, it must be the other way around, actually. So I started programming in 1998, so that's like 15 years now, and with the Ultimate Gate to create a music application for the web. That's not really true, but in a retro perspective, it feels like that, because everything I did was actually going towards Audiotool, yeah, without having any idea from the name or how it looks like. But yeah, it actually was heading to that. Yeah, there are actually a couple of products or fun projects we made back then with, or I made with different people. So one thing was 2002, the X-Rays Composer. I have no demo version. It's like a Flash version 6, so it doesn't provide any good functionality. But you could just take some samples in, some kind of drum computer-like functionality were there, and a really cheap synthesizer. So that's like 11 years ago. But we already had this idea of having a community and being able to remix stuff and share stuff. Yeah, but the time was not ready for that, and there was not the technology for that. So then 5 years later, there was Splice Music, where I joined a team in Barcelona to help them building up the UI. The UI is the user interface, which is pretty boring actually for me, because I would like to program instruments, synthesizers, drum computers, of course, and then I was sitting there and doing buttons and radio groups and toggle. That's not the most fun of it. Just to mention, for the X-Rays Composer, there were excellent graphics from David Rowart, who's actually still in Berlin, and at Splice Music, even I worked on the user interface. I learned a lot from this guy, that's Bram de Jong. He is more or less famous guy in the DSP world. Yeah, and DSP is digital signal processing. So these are the guys who are actually doing the filters and sequencing and synthesizers and so on. So that helped me a lot to see what he's doing and how it works. So then I was going to do it on my own. After Splice went dead, that was in the end of 2007, I think, or in the beginning, I don't know, from 2008. I created this little guy here, and so I did it like one day. It's like starting in the morning and then finishing it in the evening, go to bed, and the next morning I came in and checked my statistics on the site, and it blew me away, because it was 100,000 users on my site within 24 hours. Was a big deal for me, and it actually helped me seeing that the internet needs something like that. So the people want to do music in the internet. And at the same time, Andreas Jacobi from Hopnox came to Berlin visiting me, and And then I was explaining him what I have in mind. I want to create a music application where the people are able to create music on the internet and share it and remix it and just work together. And he was like, well, that's nice, because I want basically the same thing. So let's hook up. He made me move to Cologne, and then we started Audiotool. And we actually launched Audiotool in March 2010, so there's a gap of 2 years where we did a lot of development, because the Flash player still was not really built for something like that. It's still an animation tool, banner creation tool, so it took a lot of effort, and it's basically a lot of work from Joa, which he is also here, creating a lot of data structures and doing a lot of abstraction from the code to let us really move forward and come to the point where we launched the version 1.0, which already had a timeline, so you could really automate stuff, put in nodes, and we had the community at the same day launching. So that's for us, going from beta to something professional. Amazing music has been created since then. Well, that's true, and a lot of you guys really, when I listen to your music, it's like, okay, that's why we are building that, and it's really keeping me working. And I think the rest of the team is feeling the same thing. That they're listening to your music and get the feeling, wow, that's brilliant. So we have to keep pushing it, adding more features to it. So Audiotool today, what do we have right now, like a current state? We have these haptic devices to arrange on the 2D desktop. So it's like the evolution from Reason to something in 2D. I'm definitely, 10 years ago, I was definitely a Reason guy. I loved it with the cables and everything, but I hated it to be stuck in this rec format, so I couldn't just pull things out. So that was actually the idea for having a 2D space where I can arrange my devices for my own. We have dynamic signal flow, that's cables basically, you know that. We have automation and recording. We have samples, you can upload them, you can use the line in the microphone, or you can even bounce your stuff, right? So you can just take something anywhere in the timeline and say, I need a sample of that, so you can play it reverse or whatever you have in mind to do. Drum machines, of course, subtractive and phase modulation synthesizer. Some people say PM. That's the exact description for the synthesizer, but if Native would have built it, it would be called FM, because FM is like a buzzword for it. Effect devices, of course, various routing, mixing devices, you all know that, and the resampler, which is the Russellbox, is also actually yours invention to build such a thing. And we have client-side Worbis mixdown. It's not really interesting, actually. So that was more the app side. Now I'm going to talk more on the website. So you can access the tracks from everywhere. That's actually the basic point of Audiotool. Going to another computer and open your tracks and just start from there, because all the plugins, all the assets like samples, plugins, and the presets are in our storage. Yeah, and our storage is your storage, so you can access it from everywhere. You can save your favorite studio and share. That's the template functionality. So sometimes you figure it that for your certain sound, you actually take the same setup every day or every time you open up Audiotool, so you can just create a template and then always start from there. You can invite people to collaborate on your drafts. That's for now, for the time being, it is one people at the time, one editor at a time. So when another one comes in, you get this message like, no, there's another one editing it. But we will see how we're going to solve that in future. And of course, you can publish your track to the community, get proper feedback, and improve yourself, hopefully, to make a better track, or even make this track a little bit better when you get certain feedback. You can remix other people's tracks, you can follow people and albums to create playlists, charts, or just your own LP. or EP. And what's also new right now is that you can browse a site without playback interruption. I really like that. So since we have this feature, I don't make any music. I'm just listening to music on Audiotool, and that's quite a fun. So there is actually now showtime that was supposed to be, but we have some weird trouble with the router, or we actually didn't define the problem right now yet. We didn't. I could show the Audiotool website, but some things are a bit weird. And I think all of us know the Audiotool website. So I would just skip that if it's cool. It's the current state, so it's nothing new for us. It's boring actually then. All right, a couple of statistics. We are very close to 500,000 users. That's a big number for us. We have way over 200,000 published tracks. I don't know what this number means, but it sounds like a big number. And we have 44 million plays. That sounds like a big number as well. So, mission accomplished? Nah, definitely not. So, again, it's a personal view. So, things that personally bothers me most, there are couple of things when I open Audiotool where I have the feeling, oh, why didn't we do that? So why take it so long to implement it? First thing is just the developer view. So we are using Flash. Flash is like a technology which is going to have an end soon. I don't know, maybe next year, maybe in 5 years, but it's going to have a final end. And above that, the language to program Flash, it's really unreliable. So it doesn't make fun, it doesn't feel robust, it doesn't feel stable. And I think there are a lot of bugs in Audiotool, even coming from that. Of course, when you put more effort in it, you can fix all these bugs. But in the end, what you want to have as a developer, you want to have a reliable language where you really have the feeling, okay, what I'm doing right now, that's stable, that's cool. Let's work with that. And the other problem for you guys, of course, it's the high latency. So we are not able to set the latency lower than, I think, 50 milliseconds. But you can do it in the preferences right now. But you usually find that the Audiotool playback gets really choppy when you do that. So you are all using the default settings that I put in there, and that's like 160 milliseconds. That's way off for every musician. So when you just use it for placing your notes and do some automation and turn your knobs, that's okay. Yeah, but if you want to connect your MIDI keyboard and play something, it's like playing a note, pling, that's too late. Yeah, cannot work with that. It's single-threaded. What that basically means is Audiotool is just using one CPU. Yeah, that's the easiest way to explain it. And that basically means that the user interface and all the logic that needs to be computed and rasterized to the screen, all the design elements, they are actually not running parallel with the audio tool, with the audio creation, with the DSP algorithms. So they're running linearly. Yeah, one after the other, a little bit of UI, a little bit of audio, a little bit of UI. It doesn't really make sense, and that causes a lot of hiccups in the Audiotool playback, a lot of glitches. So it would be much better if we could use parallel computing, like having the logic and the UI on one CPU and on the other CPU just running the audio stuff. So that makes the performance moderate. It's okay, but it's not great. Could be better. It's browser only, so no mobile devices. I personally, I'm not a big fan of mobile music applications, but there are a couple of out there which are really neat and nice. And when you sit in a train, well, yeah, you can do some drafts and play around, but you will never come to a professional thing where you have the feeling, okay, that's a final track, that's really great. But seeing Audiotool later on, maybe on mobile platforms, and then being able to get home, open up your track, and then have it again on a desktop, that makes kind of sense. So having all platforms available at the same time with all your tracks. Another thing is no real-time compilation. How amazing would that be? Yeah, I open my track, I invited another one, and he's just coming in, and I see, hey, Crypta joined. Yeah, cool. Let's have a chat. Let's talk music. Yeah, and then you do something on the 303, I do something here, and we talk and we try to figure out how to make this track really amazing at the same time, not one after the other. No sampler. I know that's one of the biggest feedback requests we have. Is like I need a sampler. There are these guys like Tonsage creating piano sounds in Machinist, and I saw that. It's like that's so crazy. We should have a sampler for sure. There's one thing about a sampler: it needs a lot of memory. But there's a solution for that, and I come to that later. There's no sophisticated reverb. That's something I really want to see, because I like dub techno and stuff, and there's always these grungy, super verby hall effects, and yeah, I'm missing that. It's my personal view. And there is an idea of having additive modulation. So right now we have automation, which basically means it presents an absolute value. So when you make a line from down to up, you see the knob going from complete down to complete up. Additive modulation would mean you could add another modulator, like an LFO. So imagine again, you have this line going in the automation from down to up. The knob goes up, yeah, in a smooth speed, but then an LFO would be added to that, and you can also use different modulation signals like noise. So I cannot count how often I create an automation just to have little jitters in the parameter, just to make the sound more living. How nice would it be just to drag in a noise modulator, and you're basically done, just saying that's the depth, and pretty much that's it. I think we are going there. And yes, a modular synthesizer, that would be nice as well, right? So having something kind of reactor, but easier, yeah. So that was my personal view, but now what musicians want to have. So what you guys want to have, and even those musicians who are not into Audiotool and saying, nah, as long as there's no WSP support, nah, I don't come. Let's see what's that all about. Low latency MIDI, real-time audio recording, really interesting for singers. Yeah, that they can take your track and really record over your stuff. Yeah, you get immediately an audio track. Would be nice as well. Download uncompressed WAV file. You made the track. You should be able to get the best quality out of it. Sure. Offline application. We heard that a lot. There are a couple of problems with that, obviously, because you have no access anymore to the samples, to the presets. And then how do we deal with your time being offline? So you saved, you published maybe, and you uploaded a sample. So the next time you get online, then we need to sync everything. It's not really a big thing, but that may come later. Export to SoundCloud, iTunes, Beatport is something that you guys probably want to have. Maybe you want to earn some money later on, but I guess there will later Andreas talking about a little bit of Audiotool, the business side. More instruments, more effects, more devices. So now we are talking about the Audiotool next generation. So this is how we take a bunch of them at once. So all these features, all these things I want to have, you want to have, so how can we really address them? And this is the guy who is going to solve that. Started in the Audiotool with the cross-compiler, and then last year, it's now a separate thing that makes sense. You can focus on defrag, doing this cross-compiling framework. And we focus on Audiotool, and basically what it is, we write Java code. Java is a very reliable language. It's almost for 30 years or something out there. I don't know. It's really old, really reliable. thought through. And what defrag allows us is to compile to HTML5, to C++, and to Android, which is basically C++ with another. Well, if you want to know how exactly it works, then go to Jura and ask him. So defrag is Jura Ebert. Is Tim here? Tim Richter? Okay. High performance cross-compiling, I say. Because what comes out is really fast and it works. It supports the GPU. It's something I actually said in the beginning a little bit. So Audiotool is just using one CPU, but it's even not using your graphics card. Not really. Yeah, it doesn't do anything which helps the CPU to generate audio. So defrag allows us to get all the graphics, all the UI rendered on the graphics card, so the CPU has more time really to focus on music. Well, write application code once basically means what I said before. It's iOS, it's Android, it's HTML5, and that's what we are aiming for. So Audiotool and defrag, let's take a quick look. I hope this works now, because we still probably have some issues here. So before I start, Audiotool Sketch, that was an application that we released for Android, and was just a demo. We wanted to see how far we can go. And we use the same demo now to port it to defrag and have the ability to then port it to iPad and so on. Andreas, do you have the iPad with you?
Yeah, it should be there. Behind you.
Oh, it's here.
Yeah.
It's here. So it's here. So what you need to know is that Audiotool Sketch runs the same audio engine as the Audiotool. So basically we are very close to get everything working on defrag.
Very
so
close doesn't mean fast, right?
Yeah, it's a matter of perspective, I guess. So for me it's like very close, but that might be a couple of months. So the problem here is we have 1024 pixels, and you see the devices were designed for the pads, so it doesn't really fit in. But you get an idea. This is HTML5. There's no Flash Player anymore. Yeah, and it provides the same thing. It's a little bit faster, and it should get a lower latency as well later on. And yeah, it works like a charm actually. It can do the same thing. It's really responsive. All right? So you get an idea, yeah? Audiotool will work the same thing sometime, in someday. What? Can I get your signs? Ah, okay, yeah. Cannot see where it is. Oh, here. Side 2. So that's the same thing on the iPad. Of course, for the iPad, we need another user interface. You can imagine that Audiotool desktop with cables and everything. It works with a mouse, but it doesn't work with your finger. So, but they are already. We have UI concepts for that. So. There we go. We can just take here. Nobody will see that, I guess, right? All right, so this is what we will get from defrag next year and in 2 years. And over the next 10 years, HTML5 is really something we are aiming for, of course. First thing, getting rid of the Flash Player. And being proud of being the first guys doing the same thing as we did on the Flash Player, like having a music application in the Flash and now in HTML5. Low latency, HTML5 supports setting the latency very low, so it's just up to your computer how low you can go. So we make it adjustable for you. Low memory usage. So we have some things we can do to lower the memory usage for samples, which basically means it's like 2/3 less memory we need for whatever length of sample. So you can imagine that we are then very close to implement sampler and audio recording, because the only reason why there's this 13 seconds limit, it's all about the memory, because the flash player doesn't really like when you take all the memory. It's like 1 gigabyte. Sometimes the flash player just say, okay, that's it, I'm just crashing. I don't care anymore what you're doing, because it's nonsense for me. But that's not true. It's not nonsense. We just need that kind of memory. So as I said, all the graphics will be rasterized on a GPU, which basically means more time for audio processing. Again, application logic and DSP running in different threads, meaning they can basically work on 2 CPUs, and everyone has 2 at least. Most have 4 or even 8. Time scratching, that's something we are going to implement. And a server-side mixdown, that's really nice. So in future, you don't have to, every time you publish, you don't have to do it in your client, and then upload the Vorbis file. So in future, you just say, I want to publish this track, and then you probably get an email or something after 5 or 10 minutes saying, okay, your track is now online. We rendered it. And of course, we keep the WAV file for you. So the author should be able to download the WAV file then. So for other users, we are still thinking how to do that, but you should be able to do that. And this is really amazing, actually, because we are thinking stream the audio from the server. So when your computer is too slow, then you can just say, okay, I want to have a session on the server. So the server is going to render all the audio and just send it to you. So everything you do, turning knobs, moving something in a timeline, is going to be sent to the server. It's rendered there, and you get an audio stream back. So it's really important for slower computers or maybe tablets when they are getting too slow because someone has a big computer and doing something on his desktop machine, which is super fast, and then you're going on your iPad or something 2 or 1, then you might be able to get a stream, or you should be able to get a stream, and then you can still work on your project. Of course, the latency then is way off, but you still can work on it. That's not that bad. iOS, Android, Audiotool player. Would be nice to have something like that. So get rid of iTunes, especially then when you have an iPhone. It's like always so crappy putting the stuff into iTunes and then on your iPhone. So it would be nice to have a player where you can just browse for tracks, make them offline available, and create playlists and stuff. Or actually, this feature is already there. So just taking albums, make them offline available, so you can take them within your train. But even more amazing would be to have a full-featured version of Audiotool on mobile devices, obviously. Real-time correlation from any platform. That's something we are going to address next year. So we are already doing something that we try to make the data structure beneath Audiotool very open to all platforms. And what that basically means is that we are able to really go to different platforms and make format changes, and that's actually all we need to implement for real-time correlation. So, as I said, in future you just go in, and if somebody you invited is coming in, then you are there at the same time working on a track. And there are a couple of more things on that technique. Obviously, what you can do is, so like having a show or something, or you want to teach some people, then you just go on a website, open Audiotool, say, this is a public session, and then people see it on the website, because we will list that on the front page, so people can just go in your session. They cannot change anything, but they can see how do you make your tracks? And that's really amazing. I think it's like a class situation with a little chat. Why did you set this note to this length? Does it even have any meaning, or is it just by random? And then you say, yeah, it's random. Lucky shot. Even more amazing, which we are going to address, or we have to evaluate that still. But as I said, Defrag is able to compile to C++. And actually, I think already all browsers, at least Firefox and Chrome, should be able to execute C++. C++ basically means it's native speed. So it's the best performance you can get out of your machine. So we might implement such a plugin. So when you have the feeling that your HTML5 Audiotool is too slow, then you can just download this booster, install it, and it will just recognize that you are an Audiotool in the application, and then you get native speed. It's a big thing. It's like, I don't know how much faster it is in times, but I guess it will probably be very fast. So then, just back to the VST. So the reason why we don't support VST is not that's super hard. It's more like they want money for it. And the problem is when you open your track and use some of your VST instruments, and then I'm going to open it, I probably don't have it because I didn't pay for it. So there is a clash between the licenses, and there's no way to solve it in the VST world because they want to earn money. They're licensing to certain people, and so what to do? The only way what we could do is we create an SDK for our own. So the same thing, like an SDK is a software development kit, and VST is such a thing. It's just a software development kit. It was released from Steinberg. We all know Steinberg from Cubase. And what you do as a developer, you download it, and then you can create your synthesizers, effect devices, and so on. And we want to have the same thing. So when you are a developer and you know what you're doing and you know how to write Java code, then you can write a plugin for Audiotool. We will make sure it's in some kind of sandbox, so it will not destroy the rest of Audiotool if you make any mistakes. But yeah, this is really something nice. And mastering is a big thing, definitely. So what we want to have is basically something where you can take your finished track and then open another application. So another application, import that track, and then do your mastering. So you might ask why we don't implement mastering as plugins in Audiotool. I'm not sure. Actually, we can talk about that. Not right now, but after my session or at the party, what do you think about that? I have a very strong feeling that people are going to use these plugins just as any other device, like effect plugins. And I'm not sure if I like it or if I should like it, if I should have an opinion, like, hey, it's free, do whatever you like. Or if we should a little bit say, hey, try first, make your mix right, yeah, all the volumes and the frequencies, because it doesn't make any sense to start with mastering from the beginning. That's what I figured. I don't know, maybe there are different approaches on that. So more features that was actually almost what we are going to do next year. Not everything will happen. We're a very small team, but a lot of things will at least have been started then. So the modulators, I already, Luke. I don't know, but you were looking like that. Jeez.
I always look like that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So modulators, maybe they're coming next year. I just put them somewhere because I know everything I write, you probably say at the end of next year, hey, where are the modulators? Where are they? And you're right. So I need to be a little bit careful. So another thing I haven't mentioned yet are macros. So macros, the idea about macros is maybe well known. I don't know. I explained it very briefly and short. You take a couple of devices and say, okay, this is my macro cosmos, and they're already connected and everything. And then you can create, parameter knobs or sliders, and these sliders basically control these knobs, and they can also control more knobs at the same time. So good sound designers on Audiotool, they will probably go and create some macros for the beginners, because then you can. I remember what's the name from the Russian guy making these unbelievable Noros? Noros. Yeah. It's like he is using the Heisenberg. A lot of people still don't master that thing, yeah. And then putting in a couple of effect devices in a chain, and he always managed to get these beautiful pads. And I never get that to work. I could just copy it, but I don't want to. I want to understand how it works. So that would just the guy to create some macros, and then just having 2 or 3 parameters, and beneath, which I don't see, is that's actually where all the work is going. So complex design at your fingertips. That's the more buzzy thing. And now, oh yeah, that's amazing as well. Because I think Audiotool is actually something that I would like to see in a club. Yeah, right now it's like, okay, you're at home doing some music, and maybe you are a DJ and you take a stuff, go to the club and play it. Or there are DJs on Audiotool, download it, and so on. You get my point. It would be much nicer if Audiotool has some kind of live mode. So I'm not really just saying play. I have some kind of a performance view. So basically, you see that everything comes together. It's almost the same as the macros. So you're basically taking certain things like pattern changes to make a pattern changes, and a couple of knobs, only the necessary thing, yeah, not to scroll there, yeah, when you're on stage scrolling the whole desktop to make changes. So you get all in one beautiful screen, yeah, which you layered for yourself, and then you can basically play live. And above that, I want to have some cue points in the sequencer, so I can really say I want to jump to certain points. Yeah, so you have your intro, you have your breaks. And well, if the crowd is really jumping and not leaving that part, then you just keep looping it. Yeah. And this leads to a new track type on Audiotool, which will be the live tracks, basically, or live loops. We haven't figured that yet. Let's see how we going to name them. Maybe you have a suggestion for that. Is that a good idea? Should we do that? Yeah. Okay, great. All right, that was a lot of stuff. I didn't mention that we are going to implement devices. We all want to have devices, multi-effect devices, blah, blah, everything you want to have. We want to have as well, because we are doing music on Audiotool as well. So I'm doing a lot of music on Audiotool when I have the time. So I get a good understanding what you guys are missing. Yeah, so I'm pushed by myself, but a lot from your side, of course. So if there is anything, that's my email. Just write me a mail. I would definitely say this is going to happen or this is not going to happen, and with an explanation. So, and it's always good to know the Audiotool app will always be free. That's something we agreed on internally, because you know there is business, there's earning money. Where does the money come from? I don't answer that, because we have a session afterwards where Andreas is going to tell you how we do money. You can send money to us later. We try at least, and I guess we will succeed with that eventually. It's really important for me to see the Audiotool app live, because there are a lot of young people, and I don't want to see paying for the Audiotool app. And I don't want to have this two-class people, like these are the premium guys, they can use these plugins, these are the other guys, they cannot use them. That's really, it's so annoying. It's like that's the how the word runs on, but we don't. And there are I'm pretty sure there are a couple of other things we can do to get some money. Yeah, and yeah, help us doing that. Help us democratizing. Well, that's a different word. Music production. Yeah. And the best way to do it for each of you is just talk about Audiotool, talk about it, and tell your friends, tell these friends that they have to tell their friends, and so on. Because it's really important for us that we get a lot of more users. 500,000 sounds great, but it's in the world of Facebook and Twitter with billions of people or millions of people. It's not enough to make this plan really happen, like having the Audiotool app for free, giving young people the opportunity to make music without paying it, and then have... I lost my point, but I guess you got my point, right? So, thanks for your time. Before that, I have to say, what was it? The world needs more jam bam.